Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real quick. Every woman in here wants clarity. Every woman wants certainty. Every woman wants a man who proudly says, yeah, that's my woman. And I'm here to tell you today, you don't get that by waiting, wishing, or chasing. You get that by knowing exactly who you are. Knowing your worth and refusing to negotiate it is one of the most powerful decisions a woman can make in her life, especially in her relationships. When you understand your value, you move differently. You speak differently. You choose differently. You stop living on discounts just to be accepted. You stop shrinking so someone else can feel bigger. You stop settling for halfway love, occasional effort, inconsistent affection. Your worth is not up for debate, adjustment, or negotiation. It is fixed, firm, and undeniable. And once you embrace that, everything around you begins to shift. A woman who knows her worth does not beg for attention. She commands respect by the way she carries herself. She doesn't wait around hoping someone will realize how amazing she is. She already realizes it herself. She doesn't break herself into pieces just to make someone comfortable. She understands that the right person will meet her where she is, not ask her to lower the bar. When you know your worth, your energy becomes selective. You don't allow everyone access to you. You don't let every man into your world just because he shows interest. Interest is cheap. Intent is what matters. Effort is what matters. Consistency is what matters. And a woman with self-worth recognizes the difference immediately. A man can only treat you at the level you treat yourself. If you treat yourself like an afterthought, he will treat you like one. If you treat yourself like an option, he will treat you like many others. But when you treat yourself like the gift that you are, you set the tone for how others must treat you. The moment you start honoring your boundaries, honoring your heart, honoring your time, and honoring your energy, you separate yourself from every woman who accepts less just to say she has someone. You walk in rooms with a presence that says, I don't need your approval. I am already approved. And that quiet confidence is powerful. It forces people to step up or step away. Knowing your worth also means understanding what you bring into a relationship: loyalty, support, love, peace, faith, patience, partnership. Those qualities are not ordinary. They are valuable. They change a man's life if he is wise enough to see them. But those qualities lose their shine when they are given to someone who does not appreciate them. When you know your worth, you stop pouring into cups with holes in them. You stop giving your heart to men who don't know how to hold it. You stop proving your value to people who are blind to it. The moment you decide that your worth is non-negotiable, you upgrade your entire life. You elevate your standards, your expectations, and your vision for yourself. You no longer chase, you no longer convince, you no longer settle. You simply stand in your truth, and from that place of strength, the right man will recognize you, respect you, and choose you without hesitation, because a woman who knows her worth is impossible to overlook. A man chooses the woman who sets standards, not the one who settles, because standards are not rules, they are reflections of self-respect. When a woman holds standards, she shows a man exactly how she expects to be treated, spoken to, valued, and prioritized. She does not leave room for confusion. She does not leave space for disrespect. She does not entertain behavior that drains her emotionally or spiritually. A woman who sets standards communicates through her actions that she understands her value and will not accept anything that falls below that level. And that firmness, that clarity, that confidence becomes the very thing that separates her from every other woman who is willing to accept less than she deserves. When a woman settles, she teaches a man that she can be pleased with the bare minimum. She teaches him that he doesn't have to put in effort. He doesn't have to communicate. He doesn't have to be consistent. And he doesn't have to show commitment. Settling tells a man that he can give you whatever is convenient for him because you will adjust yourself to fit his comfort zone. But when a woman stands in her standards, she flips the script. She forces him not to be comfortable, but to grow. She forces him not to guess, but to step up. She forces him not to drag his feet, but to move with intention. Men rise to the level of the expectations set in front of them, and a woman who does not settle becomes the kind of woman who naturally inspires effort. A man chooses a woman with standards because she becomes a challenge, not the kind that frustrates him, but the kind that motivates him. Men don't value what comes too easily. They value what requires them to become better. A woman who settles may get temporary attention, but a woman with standards gets long-lasting respect. She becomes the type of woman he talks about proudly, the type he invests in, the type he doesn't want to lose. Standards create structure, and structure creates clarity. A man knows exactly what role he must play. When a woman makes her expectations known without apology, when a woman refuses to settle, she separates herself from drama, inconsistency, uncertainty, and half-hearted behavior. She moves with grace, but she also moves with firmness. She knows when to walk away, not because she is cold, but because she refuses to waste love on someone who cannot reciprocate it. That decisiveness makes her unforgettable. Even if a man walks away, he will remember her. Even if he acts cold, he will feel her absence. Even if he thought he had options, he will realize that none of them measure up because standards create an imprint. A woman who sets standards becomes the woman he wants to claim, not the woman he keeps on standby. She becomes the woman he wants to protect, not the woman he plays with. She becomes the woman he chooses, not because she demanded it, but because her standards created an environment where only a serious, intentional man can stay. Making him step up instead of stepping down to prove your loyalty is one of the strongest forms of self-respect a woman can show. Too often, women lower their expectations, silence their needs, and shrink their standards just to keep a man comfortable, hoping he will eventually recognize their loyalty and reward it with love. But real love does not grow where you diminish yourself. Real connection is not built on sacrifice that only goes one way. When a woman lowers herself just to keep a man, she doesn't inspire him to step up. She teaches him that she can be taken for granted. When she holds her ground, when she refuses to settle for inconsistent behavior or emotional crumbs, she forces him to rise or risk losing her. And that moment is where true respect is born. A man grows when he has something to grow for. When you refuse to step down to match his lack of effort, he sees that you are not like the women who bend backwards just to stay in his life. He realizes you have options, you have strength, you have independence, and you have a life that doesn't revolve around waiting for him to act right. That realization wakes up something inside him, because men do not value what is always available regardless of their effort. They value what they must work to maintain. They value what challenges them to improve. They value what stands firm in its expectations. When a woman stops lowering herself to make a relationship work, she stops feeding the illusion that love is about suffering. She learns to stop proving her worth to someone who has yet to prove theirs. She learns to stop showing infinite patience to someone giving her limited commitment. She learns the difference between being loyal and being used. Loyalty is powerful, but loyalty without boundaries becomes self-sacrifice. And self-sacrifice without appreciation becomes emotional exhaustion. A woman who refuses to step down becomes a mirror. She reflects to him what a healthy relationship requires: communication, consistency, respect, honesty, and effort. She becomes the standard he must rise to meet, not because she demands it with anger, but because she embodies it with confidence. A man who truly cares will not be intimidated by that. He will be inspired. He will adjust his behavior, improve his communication, show up with intention, and treat her with the seriousness she deserves. But a man who only wants convenience will fall away the moment he realizes he cannot keep her with half effort. And that is the point. Walking in your worth reveals exactly who belongs in your life and who only belongs in your past. When you choose not to lower your standards, you protect your heart, your peace, and your future. You show a man that if he wants a woman of value, he must become a man of value. And the right man will be proud to do exactly that, not because you forced him, because your strength inspired him to become better than he was before he met you. When you carry yourself with confidence, you become unforgettable, not because you are louder, prettier, or more dramatic, but because true confidence is rare. Real confidence is not about being perfect. It's about knowing your value even when someone else fails to see it. It's about understanding that your presence alone holds power. A confident woman doesn't chase validation because she already validated herself. She doesn't compete because she understands there is no competition when you know who you are. She doesn't beg for clarity, consistency, or commitment because she knows she deserves those things naturally. Confidence creates an aura, a gravity, a pull that makes people remember you even long after you leave the room. A woman who carries herself with confidence moves with a calm certainty. She doesn't panic over mixed signals. She doesn't cling to someone giving her half effort. She doesn't allow someone's indecision to make her insecure. She understands that a man's inability to recognize her worth does not decrease it. This mindset separates her from every woman who tries to prove her value through over-giving, over-explaining, or over-loving. Confidence says, I know what I bring and I know it's more than enough. That type of energy makes a man stop, think, and evaluate himself, because deep down he knows that a woman who values herself is not someone he can afford to lose. A confident woman becomes unforgettable because she communicates her standards without apology. She doesn't need to raise her voice to make her boundaries clear. She doesn't need to argue to get respect. She carries herself in a way that shows she respects herself first, and that alone commands respect from others. A man looks at a confident woman and sees stability. He sees strength, he sees purpose. He sees someone who doesn't depend on his validation, and that independence attracts him more than any physical beauty ever could. Confidence is magnetic. It draws people in not through effort, but through presence. Confidence also allows a woman to walk away when something threatens her peace, and walking away is one of the most unforgettable things a woman can ever do. When she removes herself from inconsistency, disrespect, confusion, she sends a message stronger than any words. I refuse to let this define my worth. Most men expect women to stay through pain, to tolerate nonsense, to accept excuses. But when a woman chooses herself, a man feels the weight of her absence. He realizes that she loved him, but she loves herself too. That realization can change a man's entire perspective. A woman who carries herself with confidence becomes the standard he compares everyone else to, not because she tried to be the best, but because she simply was herself, sure, grounded, intentional, and strong. She becomes the woman he remembers in moments of silence, the woman he thinks about when he reflects on his mistakes, the woman he knows he should have matched in effort. Confidence leaves an imprint on a man's memory, a permanent reminder of the kind of woman he should have stepped up for. The right man is inspired by your value, not intimidated by it, because a woman's true worth does not threaten a mature man. It motivates him. When a woman carries herself with dignity, when she knows who she is, what she deserves, and what she refuses to tolerate, she becomes a mirror that reflects a man's potential back to him. A man who is emotionally ready for a real relationship sees her strength not as competition, but as an opportunity. He sees her independence not as a challenge to his masculinity, but as a sign of her self-respect. He sees her standards not as demands, but as direction. A weak man will say she's too much. A strong man will say she's exactly what he's been searching for. The value she brings, loyalty, wisdom, peace, emotional intelligence, maturity becomes the spark that makes him want to become a better version of himself. When a woman's value is genuine, she doesn't have to hide it or tone it down to make a man feel secure. Presence alone shows what a healthy partnership can look like. She listens without judgment, but she doesn't let herself be disrespected. She supports her partner, but she does not support childish behavior. She nurtures love, but she will not nurture excuses. She brings peace not because she's quiet, but because she's grounded. A man who is ready for commitment sees all of this as a blessing, not a burden. She becomes the kind of woman he wants to protect, not because she is weak, but because he wants to safeguard something valuable. A man who is truly for you will look at your confidence and feel challenged in the right way. He will want to rise to meet your energy. He will want to match your level of effort, consistency, and growth. Your value gives him direction, purpose, and clarity. It shows him what mature love requires. It shows him what stability feels like. It shows him what a real partner looks like. Many men have never experienced a woman who loves with depth but stands with strength. So when he meets her, he doesn't retreat. He leans in. He doesn't feel overwhelmed. He feels awakened. A man who is intimidated by your value is not your man. He is simply a man who has not matured past his insecurities. He expects women to make themselves smaller so he can feel bigger. But the right man doesn't need you to shrink. He grows beside you. He sees your ambition and becomes more ambitious. He sees your discipline and becomes more disciplined. He sees your self-love and learns how to love himself better. Your value becomes the guide he didn't know he needed. The right man sees a valuable woman as a blessing he must cherish, not a threat he must control. He doesn't try to dim her light. He protects it. He doesn't compete with her strength. He admires it. He doesn't fear her standards. He meets them. And he doesn't run from her worth. He rises to it. You don't force him with pressure. You force him with your presence and your principles, because real influence doesn't come from begging, demanding, or chasing. It comes from showing up as a woman who knows exactly who she is and what she stands for. When you move with integrity, when you live by your standards, when you stay true to your expectations, you automatically create an energy that a man cannot ignore. Your presence becomes powerful because it reflects consistency, confidence, and self-respect. You don't have to push him to choose you. Your character naturally separates you from anyone who tolerates less, accepts confusion, or sacrifices their boundaries just to keep someone around. Principles are the backbone of a woman's strength. They are the rules she lives by, the lines she will not allow anyone to cross, and the standards she refuses to lower. A woman with principles doesn't need to ask a man to act right, because the moment he doesn't, her silence, her distance, and her self-discipline communicate everything on their own. She doesn't argue for loyalty. She doesn't debate commitment. She doesn't beg for effort. Her principles teach a man how to treat her without her ever raising her voice. And a man who truly wants her will rise to meet those principles, because he knows losing a woman like that would be one of the biggest mistakes of his life. A woman's presence is also a force on its own. When she carries herself with calm confidence, when she values her peace, when she knows how to walk away from chaos, she becomes unforgettable. A man feels the difference between a woman who needs him and a woman who chooses him. He feels the difference between a woman who accepts anything and a woman who expects something. He feels the difference between pressure and principle. Pressure pushes men away. Principles pull the right man closer. Forced decisions never last, but inspired ones do. A man chooses a woman forever when her presence brings out the best in him and her principles remind him of who he wants to be. When a woman leads with presence and principles, she no longer participates in emotional games. She doesn't chase mixed signals. She clarifies them. She doesn't wait for him to figure out what he wants. She moves forward with her own life. She doesn't allow herself to be an option. She positions herself as a priority through her actions, not her words. A man watching her becomes aware that this is not a woman he can play with. This is not a woman he can string along. This is not a woman he can replace. Her energy alone makes him think twice, step up, take responsibility, and choose her with certainty. A woman like this doesn't force him. She makes choosing her the most natural, obvious, and logical decision he can make. Her presence inspires loyalty. Her principles demand respect. And together they create a version of her that no man with maturity, intention, and vision would ever risk losing.